Leon Rock, and we're here to talk about politics, and more politics. This week, you're going to have an opportunity to listen to me because we don't have a guest today, but we do have conversation, to say the least, about issues that are important to the African American community of Boston. And wow, the politics is unreal. I'm going to say it again. The politics is unreal in the city of Boston. Oh my goodness. Oh my gracious. What is going on in Boston politics? You've heard the reports, and this is the number one topic of the day. And that is a newly released federal report that faults, yes, Rachel Rollins for improprieties as U.S., yes, Attorney General for Massachusetts. It's a disappointing conversation that we have to have today, but we have to have it. Yes, in a report, actually reported in the Boston Globe. And I have to read some of this because it's so important to us in the African American community to discuss this issue and take a look at what happened. Yes, the unfortunate downfall in many ways of a dear friend of the African American community, and that is Rachel Rollins. This pundit, this reporter is just a tad bit disturbed at what the reports are leaning towards. And by the way, I'm going to be candid in this conversation about what I believe are some of the inconsistencies with regards to how Massachusetts politicians and others, particularly the Republican Party, has attempted to, in many ways, create this challenge. I'm not saying that it's not a self-inflicted wound, but I am saying that the good old boys and good old girls, you know what I'm talking about, the good old boys and the good old girls have been doing something for many a year. And that is the same thing that Rachel Rollins is being essentially charged in doing, and that is violating the Hatch Act. Well, hold on and wait 1 minute, because we're going to talk about this in detail, my good friends. Actually, I want to go through the Boston Globe article. Some people don't actually have the electronic version of the Boston Globe. Some still use the paper version. But for those of you that have not read or understood the article, I'm going to dissect it, if you don't mind. Here it is. This is an article out of the Boston Globe, and it is reported that in Rachel Rollins' 16th month tenure as a U.S. attorney for Massachusetts, she has repeatedly committed ethical breaches and misused the power of her office, in particular, attempting to influence the 2022 election for her successor as Suffolk County District Attorney, according to two federal investigations that led her to abruptly announce her resignation this week. The two government watchdog investigations began in July of 2022 after, yes, Rollins mingled with the Democratic insiders at a fundraiser and photo op for Joe Biden in Andover, yes, Massachusetts. violating guidelines of her own general counsel had established to avoid violating the Hatch Act, a federal law that bars governmental employees from engaging in, yes, partisan political activity while on duty in a federal facility or using federal property, and sets limits on fundraising and other activities. That's the Hatch Act, my good friends. But the investigation quickly grew into a broader, more damning impeachment of her behind the scenes political activity while serving as the most powerful prosecutor in Massachusetts, despite being required to remain strictly neutral on political matters. Yeah. There's more. Investigators found a series of flagrant, willful ethics violations, including leaking information to news media and attempting to stir up negative stories about Suffolk County prosecutor Kevin Hayden. There's even more. Yeah, he was running against Boston City Councilor Ricardo Arroyo for the post she once held. Perhaps the most damning was her leak of Justice Department documents that implied Hayden was under investigation for handling a case involving an MBTA officer and then lying about it, lying about her involvement to investigators under oath. Ms. Rawlins is accused of abuse of her power with the federal system to achieve political goals, epitomizes the type of political justice that Congress intended to prohibit, said the U.S. Office of Special Counsel, which found Rawlins violated the Federal Hatch Act numerous times. The Office of Special Counsel said it submitted its findings to, President Biden for the violations of the Hatch Act. The White House would not make comment on this issue, and the Justice Department's Inspector General separately found that Rawlins violated, department policies and ethics and applicable laws. Oh, it gets deeper, my good friends. But I'm going to give you my analysis of what I think has gone wrong. And it may not be as bad as some people think. Well, the federal agencies that actually reviewed Rawlins's actions indicated that her actions fell short of the standards of professionalism, judgment, and impartiality that the department should expect of a U.S. attorney. The Inspector General's report said adding the findings were referred to the Office of the Deputy Attorney General for any action they deemed appropriate. Yeah, as I said, the Justice Department did not comment on whether it would take any other actions against, Rawlins. Rawlins' lawyer, Michael Bromwich, said the reports need to be put in context, noting she quickly transitioned from being a county prosecutor to the highly regulated environment of the U.S. Attorney's Office. Most of the allegations amount to minor process fouls, he said, adding that although Ms. Rawlins could have raised many facts and arguments in connection with the issues, she had no interest in litigating them any further. She believed that the better course was to step down and end the matter before it overwhelmed her office and the Department of Justice. Rawlins herself has not commented publicly, my good friends, but on Tuesday, she did say that her attorney would address the issue and she would resign before the end of business today, Friday. She also wrote to the staff of the U.S. Attorney's Office that my presence has become a distraction and the work you do is far too important to be overshadowed. The two reports are likely to be, a continuous ripple effect on the office. Josiah Levy, the first assistant U.S. attorney, is expected to lead the office until a successor is appointed by the President of the United States. The office is currently prosecuting such high-profile cases as an alleged leak in classified documents by the Massachusetts, Air National Guard. There is more, my good friends. Yep, there's more. But let me tell you what the more is. Here's the deal. This is what I see, and I could be right. Oh, I'm not excusing by any stretch of the imagination what occurred. But I will say that these violations of the Hatch Act have happened in the past. Oh, you all don't remember. Folks don't want to remember what has happened in the past with the Hatch Act and Republicans. Oh, you know what I'm talking about, my good friends. You know what I'm talking about. The Republicans have been doing it for years. Yeah, the good old boys and the good old girls in Washington, D.C. and around the country have been playing politics and violating the Hatch Act for years. Rachel Rawlins does it, and now she has to resign. Come on now, really? There's always a double standard. And that's what I'm talking about today, a double standard. Well, hold on and wait a minute. I know you're saying, well, where is the double standard, Leon? What are you talking about? Well, here's what I'm talking about. Remember how 13 senior Trump administration officials violated the Hatch Act? You remember that? Yeah. According to a report from the U.S. Office of the Special Counsel, and nothing was done. The same U.S. Office of Special Counsel that investigated this situation with Rachel Rawlins. But nothing was done under the Trump administration. Oh, let's not forget how the U.S. Office of the Inspector General sent a report to Donald Trump finding that, yes, his counselor, Kelly and Conway. This is reports, my good friends. This is reports from the U.S. Office of the Special Counsel. Kelly and Conway violated the Hatch Act on numerous occasions by disparaging the Democratic presidential candidates while speaking in her official capacity during television interviews and on social media. Nothing was done. I'm going to say it again. Nothing was done. Oh, but by the way, it saddens me that this type of You know, high-tech lynching is happening with Rachel Rollins. Oh, don't get it all twisted. I'm not literally saying that she's being lynched, but I am saying that there's a high-tech lynching going on across media outlets throughout Massachusetts and around the country. Oh, and the Republicans are loving it. I'm going to say it again. The Republicans are loving it. Yeah, actually, in many ways, the Republicans are the ones that have created, in many ways, this conversation about Rollins. Oh, and wait a minute. There's more blowback. There's a lot of blowback. Here in Washington, D.C. and around the country, there's blowback on this particular issue. And actually, again, the Boston Globe and, yeah, the Washington Post is covering it too. All the media outlets are covering it. It wasn't long ago that Massachusetts Democrat Senator Elizabeth Warren and Ed Markey, yeah, as reported in the Boston Globe today, couldn't heap enough praise on the Massachusetts U.S. Attorney General Rachel Rollins. Yeah, but there's a lot of blowback now because they not only recommended her to the White House for the job, but they had backed her efforts through a brutal confirmation fight, you know, at the Senate here in Washington, D.C., that saw her squeak through the Senate on a party line vote. Now, in the wake of the two federal reports, yeah, talking about Rollins' conduct in office, those two U.S. senators, along with other numerous Massachusetts politicians who back Rollins in her rise through politics, are facing difficult questions about red flag, whatever that means, they may have missed in their ardent advocacy. Rollins has announced, as I said before, and as of today, she's resigning from the position. Well, there's even more, my good friends. This week, the two senators, yeah, Ed Markey and Elizabeth Warren, expressed shock and disappointment at the reports released this Wednesday, which detailed those numerous ethical violations. Now, there's more, but Markey highlighted that the White House role in her final selection was the White House role. It's up to the White House to make the decision on the appointment of, yes, individuals that are recommended by the senators. Oh, there's more. They say, I'm talking about Ed Markey and Elizabeth Warren, have indicated that they sent names over to the White House for them to do vetting. And you know what vetting is to actually review individuals' backgrounds. And Markey told the Globe, the Boston Globe, on Thursday, that it was determined that the process clearly found that she was qualified. Warren, in a brief interview on Wednesday, reiterated that Senator Warren reiterated the thrust of the joint statement the pair released after the report, saying she was deeply concerned by the summary of the findings and agreed that Rollins' decision to step down. But the path that led to Rollins' nomination, confirmation, resignation, in disgrace is complicated and unresolved questions about what was ignored or missed. What was ignored or missed? Republicans were quick to gloat that they had been on the right side of the bruising fight over her nomination, eager to tarnish, in many ways, the Democrats' judgment and progressive prosecutors as a whole with the findings. Oh, hold on, wait a minute. This Arkansas Senator Tom Cotton, he states that it shows that the Biden administration and Senate Democrats are not thoroughly vetting nominees to have someone with a demonstrated history of ethical lapses and bad judgment nominated for a position in federal law enforcement. So here you go, Tom Cotton. Yeah, he's a bruiser. He wants to make sure that the former, well, I haven't heard that she has resigned as of this moment, but she says she's resigning today. So I'm going to say former prosecutor Rollins, well, he doesn't like her and didn't like her during the time of her nomination. Cotton seized on the report, saying that at the Judiciary Committee meeting on Thursday, that my Republican colleagues and I warned that Rollins was dangerously unfit to serve as U.S. attorney. What a disgrace. What a disgrace that Tom Cotton is talking this tough stuff right now. Yeah, Tom Cotton. I'm not believing anything that that guy has to say. You can call in now if you got an observation or opinion regarding Rachel Rollins and what has happened. And by the way, this is not the only conversation we have today. We're going to also talk about this new report that switching topics on the Massachusetts public housing authorities and public housing agencies challenged in regards to the condition of public housing throughout Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I want to talk about that. And I also want to talk about Malcolm X's birthday could become, yes, I'm going to say it again, could become a municipal holiday. Did you hear that? Malcolm X's birthday could become a municipal holiday in Boston. The city council approved the resolution to further honor the civil rights leader and icon. Yeah, you know, Malcolm kind of was raised in the Boston area. I guess he lived with his auntie up there in Roxbury. We're going to talk about that as well. That's a headline. Actually, it's a headline out of the Boston Herald. Surprise, surprise. Oh, there's more, my good friends. There is more. We're talking about Rachel Rollins and her challenge with regards to this damaging report that came out alleging ethical violations by the U.S. Attorney for Massachusetts. We're also talking about Senator Warren and the other senator out of Massachusetts that say that they are deeply concerned about the report and findings by the U.S. Attorney General regarding Rachel Rollins. And also, we're just talking about the ethics investigations that probably will continue with the Massachusetts Bar Association. That's the topics of conversation today. Telephone number to call in is 301-715-8592. Again, 301-715-8592. I think the numbers are, contact information is right behind me, and you can take a look at that number. Don't forget to use this password is 748-535. Again, 748-535. I guess the numbers are there somewhere in the back of me. You can call in if you wish. Again, 301-715-8592 is the telephone number. I'd love to hear what you have to say and think about what happened with the highly respected Rachel Rollins, former U.S. Attorney for Massachusetts. And if you think in many ways that the Republican Party has been doing a job to essentially create challenges for Rachel Rollins, didn't it start from the beginning? Didn't it start from the beginning with the Republican Party? And didn't, under so many administrations, Republicans and Democrats in the past, violate the Hatch Act and nothing was done? That's a fact, my good friends. Let's not forget, again, how the U.S. Office of Special Counsel sent a report to Donald Trump, finding that his counselor, presidential counselor Kellyanne Conway, violated the Hatch Act. And actually, here's the deal. There's a whole bunch of Republicans that have violated Hatch Act. Across the country, these Republicans, and don't feel bad because I'm pointing it out, that's a fact, my good friends. It's a fact that with regards to the Hatch Act, they have violated the Hatch Act over and over again. Yeah, as I said, Kellyanne Conway has violated the Hatch Act. Nothing was ever done. 13 Trump officials violated the Hatch Act during the 2020 campaign. That's a fact. More than a dozen top Trump administration officials violated terms of the Hatch Act. And the U.S. Office of Special Counsel said it in a report back in 2021. The list included several cabinet officials and top White House aides. Get this, including Trump's former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, and Press Secretary Kelly Lee McKinney. They all violated the Hatch Act. Oh, the Hatch Act has been violated consistently with the Republicans. Nothing ever done. Yeah, nothing ever done. And when I say nothing, I mean nothing. So now, folks want to take a look at the Hatch Act and essentially get a Black woman terminated. But here's the other deal that we have to realize in the African American community is that there is always a double standard when it comes to Black folks. So guess what? we have to work doubly hard to make sure that we do comply with laws. Yeah, we got to comply with those laws to make sure that we don't get caught up in violating the law, because you know they're going to come after us first. Irregardless if the White House and violated Hatch Acts and Republicans have violated. You know what? Just look it up for yourself. Look it up for yourself how this same agency or organization of the federal government looked at 13 Trump officials that have violated the Hatch Act during the 2020 campaign, and nothing was done. And actually, all those folks, well, the White House should have did something. The White House should have done something about those that violated the Hatch Act. As soon as he came into office, he should have taken care of those questionable Republicans. That's a fact, my good friends. They violated the Hatch Act and nothing was ever done. Yeah, and by the way, the Hatch Act, this 1939 law, seems to be in many ways archaic. Fact is that Republicans have intentionally ignored the law for many a year, and not until Rachel Rawlins violated in some ways. I'm sure she admits to the fact that she violated the Hatch Act based on the facts. She's a lawyer. Based on the facts, she violated it. But did she deserve this high-tech lynching? Yeah, I'm borrowing something I should be ashamed of myself. Borrowing that from U.S. Supreme Court Justice Thomas, who alleged for himself that he was involved in a high-tech lynching. But I'll tell you this, in my humble opinion, it is a high-tech lynching. Well, let's talk for a moment. Let's switch topics. And let's talk about this whole issue. I got to bring it up because this is something that is important to me. Also reported in the Boston Globe just recently that the Massachusetts public housing is deteriorating, and the cost to fix it up could cost billions. I'm going to say it again, but I'm going to restate it because I missed out on something, and that is Massachusetts public housing is deteriorating. I'm going to say it again, third time. Massachusetts public housing is deteriorating and could cost billions to fix it up. Yeah, housing authorities throughout Massachusetts are urging Beacon Hill to play catch up on repairs to their crumbling state-funded public housing stock. I've been involved in public housing pretty much all my life. And when I say that to say that early on, my family grew up in OP to a large degree. My youthful years, OP, Orchard Park. I knew it when it was deteriorating housing. Now it's Orchard Gardens and it looks pretty good. I'm going to say it again. Orchard Park, now Orchard Gardens, looks pretty good. It was rehabbed. Actually, it was torn down and built back up, most of the community. And that was some time ago. Now, Massachusetts public housing officials are saying, hey, guess what? We need help. They're getting some help in the city of Boston. I'm not sure if that strategy is working well in the city of Boston, making public housing mixed income communities, because we know how that works. It's mixed income one year and something happens. Something happens, and then they are forced out. I'm talking about the original residents. Oh, come on now. You know I know about this, because guess what? Columbia Point. You remember that? That was a public housing community, deteriorated, turned into a mixed income housing community many years ago. I was involved in that process. We guaranteed that the residents would be able to come back, and few of them are still residing at the former Columbia Point public housing community. Mixed income at one time, but really no longer. Oh, there was a plan for Columbia Point, and there's plans for public housing across the country and in Boston, Massachusetts, and in Massachusetts, but it doesn't seem as though it is a comprehensive, well thought out plan. Yeah. As reported in the Boston Globe decades ago, the Massachusetts went above and beyond when it came to housing in the poorest residents, building tens of thousands of smaller public housing apartments on its own time as a supplement to the larger complexes that were funded by the federal government. It has been a downhill ever since. After initial infusion of funding that financed construction, the state has done little to maintain the 43,000 units of public housing, leaving hundreds of properties in chronic state of disrepair. Even everyday maintenance, such as replacing broken floor tiles and rodent control, is falling to the wayside. 70,000 people who called these places home are paying the price. Children with elevated levels of lead in their blood. One resident who fell on a neglected staircase and broke her arm, and rodent problems so bad that families' young children sleep on the top bunk because the rats scurry across the floors at night. Well, this is nothing new to public housing in Boston, and it's nothing new to public housing in Massachusetts, and something needs to be done, my good friends. Conditions have become so deplorable that housing authority leaders and advocates are campaigning with the legislature and Governor Maura Healey for a whopping $9 billion in new state budget for next fiscal year to address this issue, and a bond bill for housing to bring units up to acceptable conditions. So far, the annual budgeting season, the state Senate has proposed only $107 million for yearly operating costs, and the state's more than 240 local public housing authorities, roughly 70 million short of what the public housing leaders said that they need just to keep in line with creating essentially reasonable housing. Reasonable. Well, public housing in the city of Boston and public housing in Massachusetts is a challenge. And all I got to say is what? What are you talking about? Why do I say, what are you talking about? because I have, now, here's the interesting part of this conversation today, is that I don't think that the city of Boston, humbly, I don't think that the city of Boston is using good and wise counsel on a couple of issues. And when I say good and wise counsel on a couple of issues, that's one is the whole issue of public and assisted housing. The conditions are deplorable in public housing throughout Massachusetts. That's a fact. Look at that report in the Boston Globe on Massachusetts public housing being deplorable. The cost of fixed public housing in Massachusetts could cost billions. 43,000 units of public housing, 70,000 people living in those public housing communities. And in the city of Boston, is imagery over substance. It's imagery over substance. Oh, don't get me wrong. Let's talk about it for a moment. When I say imagery over substance, here's the challenge for me as I look into this issue, is that the housing situation is so bad, yet I'm talking about in public housing and just generally in housing period, when you have to pay $2,000, $2,500 a month to rent a home, to rent a house, to rent an apartment. Something's wrong. Particularly in Roxbury, Massachusetts, where the median income is $25,000 a year. That's a fact. So why am I saying that there's a challenge? Imagery over substance. Oh, let me tell you. Let's go through this. Malcolm X's birthday can become a municipal holiday in Boston. Imagery. Now, I love the fact that the city council is addressing the issue of Malcolm X and his importance in American history, Massachusetts history, Boston history, and the importance of actually saying, hey, guess what? We need to do something in regards to Malcolm X and what he represented to our community. I'm talking about Boston Black folks. Yeah. As reported in the Boston Globe Herald, a request is pending the approval of Mayor Michelle Wu that would give the city of Boston an opportunity to celebrate the civil rights icon Malcolm X. The recognition that the city councilors say is well deserved. The city council on Wednesday unanimously supported a resolution to make May 19th, Malcolm X's birthday, a municipal holiday in Boston for residents to commemorate his legacy. Yeah, there's more. Here's a quote. For me and for many of my close friends, Malcolm X represented so much more, said City Councilor Tanya Fernandez Anderson, who sponsored the resolution. And I salute her. We got to get her back on the program. He was a man of great depth who embodied values of selflessness, of love, of patience, and passion for humanity. I look up to him as a symbol of hope. And I get it. I really do. That's symbolism. My concern, and I'm not saying that Malcolm X does not deserve to be recognized, and I celebrate the fact that the City Council unanimously voted to have Malcolm X birthday become a Boston holiday, a municipal holiday. Well done. But at the same time, I want the City Council or residents of Boston should be asking city councilors, what are you going to do to aggressively deal with the issue of public housing and its condition in Boston, Massachusetts? Now, some are going to say, well, the Boston Housing Authority is on it. Not so much, my good friends. I'm going to say it again. Some in the Boston City Council will say that the Boston Housing Authority is on it. I say not so much, my friends, because what they're doing is getting federal dollars from the Department of Housing and Urban Development to essentially, as they're doing with Whittier Street and other communities, is to bulldoze them down or retrofit them into mixed income communities. New urbanism. But that new urbanism is creating a challenge for people that formerly lived in public housing and tend not to get the right to come back because they give them Section 8s and say, hey, go outside of Boston to live. And those mixed income communities that were formerly public housing communities, the strategy of the Boston Housing Authority and the federal government is creating a challenge for public housing stock in Massachusetts and specifically in Boston. Oh, there was a time that 25% of the population in the city of Boston lived in public housing. That's a fact. A high amount of poor people living in public housing. That's a fact. Sorry. I'm sorry. If you grew up in public housing and didn't know you were poor, because as children, we weren't taught that essentially we were poor. No parent wants to say that to the children. I know when I was growing up in public housing, we didn't know that we were poor. And actually, we thought and we knew that we were rich. Fact of the matter is, my good friends, is that the challenge is great. I salute the city of Boston for making Malcolm X birthday hopefully, a Boston municipal holiday. But I say to the Boston City Council and elected officials in the city of Boston to stay focused on the prize. Not only should we celebrate Malcolm X, but we should also stay focused on making sure that we have not just imagery, and by the way, Malcolm X was an image that needs to be celebrated, but we also need substance. Public and assisted housing communities throughout the city of Boston need help. And they don't need these quote unquote mixed income communities that turn into essentially market rate housing for many to be able to essentially move people into the city and move minority groups, specifically Black folks, out. Yes, this challenge is great. Again, I celebrate the fact that Malcolm X and his birthday will seem to become a municipal holiday soon if the mayor signs the authorization. However, stay focused, my good friends, and voters. Please stay focused on the prize. And you know what that prize is, my good friends, is to make sure that Malcolm X's birthday celebration is not in vain. Did you hear me? That Malcolm X's birthday celebration is not in vain. And the only way we make sure that Malcolm X's birthday celebration is not in vain is to essentially protect. Do you hear what I said? Protect the interests of Malcolm X by saying, yes, we want not just imagery, but substance. Not just imagery, but substance. Well, that's it for today. This has been Leon Rock, and this is Africa. Oh, sorry. This is All Things Black Politics on, yes, Boston Black News. I was going to talk about another project that I'm working on, but this is All Things Black Politics live here from Washington, D.C. I'm your host again, Leon Rock. I will see you next week at this time, 11 o'clock. We're going to have an interesting guest. I will post it on Facebook, Facebook Live, Instagram, you know, the whole social media. But again, thank you for being part of this broadcast. Have a good day.